Welcome to Optily Radio, your regular 30-minute dose of everything you need to accelerate your e-commerce marketing success.
Hey there, and welcome to episode 6 of Optily Radio. I'm Nina White, host of the show, content specialist here at Optily, and all-around digital marketing strategist. Before we get into the meat of this episode, I just wanted to thank everyone so much who has given us feedback on the show. It's really great to get input from our listeners, and it will definitely help us in crafting future episodes. So I encourage all of you to hop onto Apple Podcasts and rate and review the show there. And do also make sure to leave us your comments on our social media channels with the handle @OptilyGlobal. Now, today's episode is really exciting because it's about two of the main social media platforms that we use in e-commerce, Facebook and Instagram. It seems like it would be pretty much impossible to have a successful e-commerce company in 2021 if you're not on either of these platforms and also very active on them. So while you may have a presence with organic posts and running social campaigns, is everything set up and running as well as it could be? Today's guest is an expert on social media for e-commerce specifically, and will help us pinpoint what the building blocks for success on Facebook and Instagram are. Joining me in the virtual studio today is Akvile DeFazio. She is the founder and president of Akviles, a social media agency that won the Best Small Agency Award in the US Social Media Awards last year. In the 10 years before she launched Akviles in 2014, Akvile spent time working in a variety of companies, from outdoor gear and apparel e-commerce to pet health insurance, online publications, and event marketing via paid search and social. And from the Optily side, we have Cliven Camargo joining us today. Cliven is our campaign manager and has over a decade of experience in digital marketing. In recent years, his focus has been on online media, primarily social networks like Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Prior to joining the Optily team, he founded his own digital marketing micro agency in Brazil to help small and medium-sized businesses with online campaigns. So, welcome to the show, Akvile and Cliven.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Great. So, Akvile, you're in California. So, I hear from my mom, who's in LA, that things are finally starting to open up back there. So, how's it looking where you're at?
They are. It's been refreshing. It's unusually usual just to see people out and about and us running a little bit more errands freely. So it's been nice.
That's great. Yeah. And Cliven, you're in Lisbon. How are all the COVID things looking like there?
So, really good, actually. Last week, we have one day without any deaths related with COVID. So that was great. And
Awesome.
last Monday, we started, getting out of the lockdown. So the streets are a little busy right now. So that's great to see.
That's great. Yeah. Slowly but surely here in Ireland, the next few weeks will be opening up a teeny tiny bit, but the summer is looking promising. So, great news all around. So, Akvile, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got started with Akviles, and what kind of work you guys do?
Sure. So I was working in-house, as you mentioned, at a few companies started 13, 14 years ago doing paid search, and I gravitated towards paid social, and I grew to a point where I couldn't grow much further at my last company, and I really wanted to have more responsibility and authority over the types of accounts that I worked on and to have more diversity. And I really wanted to help small and medium-sized business owners. So I feel like Flavin and I can definitely relate there. So I took the leap and I asked a friend of mine who was doing this 10 years longer than I have at that point, working for herself, if I could just shadow her for a day. But I put it off for 9 months because I didn't want to bother her I thought it was a very big ask, but I got to the point where I just finally reached out and asked her, and she's like, "I'll do you one better. I want more time to build a different business outside of online marketing. So if you gift me my time back, I'll teach you everything I know and give you some of my clients." And I I still can't thank her enough to this day. So that was kind of the precipice of how that started. And then About 2 or 3 years in, we started doing just paid social. So I let go of everything paid search and realized that I saw a need for paid social. I enjoyed it much more rather than just keyword targeting. So we primarily work with e-commerce brands, mobile apps, events more so pre-COVID, and a few entertainment industry clients across all of the platforms that offer social media advertising.
Awesome. That's really exciting. Yeah, it's so important to have a mentor when you're getting into things on your own. Like, yeah, I imagine that's yeah. Amazing to just
Yeah,
also get like so many clients right off the bat. Like,
that was
great,
immensely
great.
helpful, yeah, especially since I didn't have prior agency experience. So I was jumping into something completely foreign.
Awesome. So you mentioned you worked with a variety of clients. So do you have any sort of COVID success stories? Just as we were saying, it's been such a wild year this past year. So especially anything focused around maybe e-commerce clients on social media, someone who's done something interesting in the past year or so.
Yeah, we have a lot of shoe clients, and one in particular, I unfortunately can't name their brand, but they make very comfort-based shoe wear. And we saw an uptick in sales for those, just people, I think, being at home more and wanting to have more comfortable shoes to wear around the house or maybe do gardening with. And then there's another window client that makes custom window inserts, where typically most of our sales had been for energy efficiency, so to make your energy bills lower because they keep drafts out. But we saw an uptick in acoustic grade window inserts for them as COVID hit, because I think people being at home more, realizing how noisy their neighbors might be. So those ones can pr reduce the sound in your home by up to 70%, which is huge. So it's been interesting to see different business models shift a little bit in terms of what people are shopping for, especially in the last year, and then seeing it kind of still roll into this year, even as people are getting vaccinated and things are opening back up. But it'll be see if things shift back in the coming years.
Wow, that sounds great. Yeah, I could definitely use some acoustic paneling in my apartment, especially with recording this.
Yeah.
Some of our listeners might remember a couple of weeks ago, had some roofers outside just banging away during the
Ooh,
exact hour of the recording. So that was fun.
of course. Always happens when you
Yep.
least need it to.
Always, always. And then they stopped immediately after we finished. Yeah. So, Cliven, I know you work with a lot of our clients at Optily. Like, I think you had mentioned that there were some really interesting ones as well during COVID that did some pretty interesting things. Anything you'd like to share there?
Yeah, sure. We had one good story here that happened with a client that work with remote escape rooms. And since we are, you know, all at home, they had a huge opportunity there, right? So what happened is we started running the campaigns and we achieved good results, but they found an extra opportunity there, that is the companies, in the end of last year, because I think that with the COVID, we were not prepared, in a company perspective for, getting employees reunited, in the end of the year. So they launched a new product, and with this new product we started their campaigns, and everyone got really surprised with the results, because they started getting too much leads, and in the end they need to, um, stop the campaigns, because they weren't prepared to deal with all that leads. So it was a pretty good story.
It's a good
That's a
problem to
great
have.
problem to have.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
exactly.
Too many leads, stop the campaigns. We don't have time to
Exactly.
fulfill all this. That's pretty awesome.
Nice
Cool.
work.
Yeah, it was a good story.
Yeah. Yeah. So, with e-commerce, sometimes brands are a little overeager, especially when they're starting out of, I have to be on every single channel. In our last podcast, we actually brought up the term omni-channel and how you really can't be omni-channel. Like you're not going to have your ads on every park bench and pass, but there's multi-channel and there's so many channels you can be, especially on social media. So do you suggest that, e-commerce brands should make an effort to be present on all the major social media platforms, or should they more focus on one or two and do those as opposed to spreading themselves across multiple platforms?
Excellent question. Typically, I recommend testing something out if you think your audience is there. Just see how it works if you have the bandwidth. But typically, we recommend to clients, let's start with what we know works well and is at a good price point, like Facebook and Instagram ads. Even it has a bunch of problems. As an advertiser running an ads manager, I'm sure that you've run into them. But we start there, and if they have additional budget, then we'll test out other channels because it might be lucrative for them, and it's good to know for certain if something works well or not. So then we can either expand into that channel or just cut it off. When it comes to organic, we don't do organic services anymore, but we'll typically do the same there when we used to work on organic social, and just to have a presence, because if you're advertising there, you should still have some sort of organic presence. So if people click off your ad to go to your page and want to follow you, it's important to look like you're active at least maybe once a week. So I don't know. Basically, see what works well for you, how much bandwidth you have, and where your resources are best allocated to get a good return.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Yeah. And definitely going off that note, do you have any advice or tips on new businesses who are strapped for time and resources, probably have, just one or two people on their marketing team? And how can they best, handle content creation, both paid and organic, for social?
Oh, that's a lot of work, even just that. But if you can get ahead of a few things, maybe set up a content calendar for what you want to do organically for the upcoming months. So then you're not strapped trying to think of new content to post on a weekly or daily basis or biweekly. And then when it comes to paid, just set up some evergreen campaigns that you can run. And if you have any special promotions or new product launches coming out, anything seasonal, then set those up ahead of time, get them through the approval process, and then when they're ready to go, just turn them on. So if you can do any of the front-loaded work, that's the most work you'll have to do. So then after that, you just have to do maintenance and testing and optimizing from there. But that could help save you a lot of time in the future, making it a little bit more efficient.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Awesome. So the talk of the town, especially, with it launching just last month, is iOS 14. So iOS 14 and Facebook and Instagram. I'm sure both of you, yeah, judging by the expressions on your faces. Yeah, so it's definitely sort of thrown a wrench into a lot of social media advertising. So what sort of effect has it had on your business and your clients? And what are some of the steps that you've taken to address the data loss? Akvile, let's start with you. I'm sure Cliven also has lots of opinions.
It's been mostly just managing expectations with clients, given what we know and what Apple or Facebook have put out there for us, because we're working with limited information, and just educating the best we can and being ahead of it, because the last thing we want is a client being like, hey, what's this? Better to be the first one to mention it, like, hey, this is coming down the pipeline. So we spent the last few months informing them of what may happen, what we know, what we might know, and what we don't know. So the last update just went out last week, and we've noticed a few changes. Nothing significant yet, because I feel like people are still gradually seeing those notifications rolling out and deciding to opt in or opt out. So I think it'll be some time before we can really tell the impact of how many people are opting out. But for right now, it hasn't really impacted our client conversions. But we're using a number of analytical sources like Facebook reporting or the platform that we're advertising on, to Google Analytics, to Shopify, and just trying to figure out what the trends are historically and what we might be able to expect if we have any historical data.
Awesome. Awesome. And how about you, Cliven? What sort of steps do you think you've taken, or that people should be aware of that they need to take soon?
Yeah, I think that Akvile just, made a good summary of what's going on. So we have loads of expectations right now, and we don't know exactly the impact of, these changes. But yeah, I think that right now we can share, a few things like the steps that clients need to go through just to get prepared, for when this change really happens. Because last Monday they started, changing a few things, and the clients need to be prepared with the domain verification and with the 8 events that now we have this limitation, right? So the problem is for a few clients, they have, let's say, I'll give you one example, right? So they have 2 products or 2 brands in one domain, and they need let's say 5 events that they really need to use for their campaigns, and then they will be limited. And there we started struggling a little to solve the problem. They need to choose a general event in the end, not specifically for each brand or each product. So this is the kind of things that we are a little uncomfortable right now, and everyone are just trying to adapt. And then finally, the reports as well. So clients are asking if we are, seeing different things going on the reports. These days we have the attribution window that changed, and Facebook is pushing the 7 days, um, well, like a standard option. So this is one point, but we can't select yet for the 7-day click and 1-day view. We have a few options yet, but things are changing. And I know that Aquila is really used to changes, because Facebook and the other platforms are always changing, and we are really used to the changes. But yeah, it's a interesting time. We just need to be a little patient.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. In digital marketing, you always have to roll with the punches, it seems. But just in
Exactly.
terms of, I feel like maybe we've gotten a little bit spoiled with exactly how precisely we could target on Facebook. Like, it's really, really granular. Like, when I first got in digital marketing and went into audience insights, I'm like, wow, they can target all of that. Like, that's kind of creepy.
Yeah.
So just, maybe we've gotten a bit spoiled with that much precise audience targeting. So do you think that there's going to be some different tactics that as advertisers we're going to have to use once we lose the granularity of the audience targeting capabilities?
I think so. I was thinking about it over the weekend, and, we grew up with traditional marketing where it was billboards, TV, radio, and it wasn't individual targeting, right? So we would still pay attention to it, read it, watch it, whatever. And maybe now, with things being less granular, maybe things that we are actually interested in as consumers will stand out even more. So it'll be interesting to see how that works. But one thing we've noticed in the last few weeks is reverting back more to targeting native audiences rather than lookalikes or custom audiences because of all the changes. And I feel like going back to relying on more native audiences, that's been working out well. For now, we'll see when people start opting out more and if that changes. But that could be one thing to try if you're not doing that as much these days, or you're just getting started, and see how that works out for you.
And
Awesome.
depends a little of your target as well,
Yeah.
because the first thing is you need to check how much iOS users you have in your audience. So how much iOS users are visiting your website, for example. So this is a start, and then you can check if you really need to be nervous or not. So this is one point. And yeah, again, we need to be a little patient now, but we'll be good. Everything will be fine.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, the rumor mill is saying that Android will likely follow suit, at some point later on. And with Chrome getting rid of cookies and all of that, it's sort of that trend of less granularity. So it is definitely something we will need to prepare for. But yeah, it came up in the last discussion we had that's on our Optily Short series with Greg Sterling and our co founder Keith, and then opting out completely just as an experiment and getting all sorts of strange ads that completely don't apply to them. So it's like, oh, will it be, like the late 90s where you're just getting all this random email spam? And it's like, we'll see. Maybe people will want to opt in after they see all the
Yeah.
strange ads they keep seeing all over the place. So I've definitely bought a lot of t-shirts on Facebook ads. Like, they know what I like.
Yeah.
So
I don't mind it. Get to discover some
Exactly.
new things, and I'm like, oh, like that's what I'm into, but I didn't even know about you. So maybe I'll shop.
Exactly. So now let's get into some sort of just, tested strategies when it comes to launching Facebook and Instagram campaigns. What's your core toolkit when it comes to launching a new campaign?
Set up a proper funnel. It's amazing how many accounts that I've started working on and taking over for clients where it was just, you need to be organized for one, but to have a proper funnel, understand how that works and that your campaign objectives match your audience and match your ad copy, creative landing pages, all the assets. So there's a seamless and intuitive understanding for the consumer of what the next steps are. And I often tell people like, oh, don't run a conversion campaign for a prospecting audience. You're going to pay more. You're not going to get the results. A lot of times they're like, oh, Facebook doesn't work or this channel doesn't work. And understanding those caveats of what's the least expensive way to get the most people to take a certain action and move them through that funnel. So I think that's the most important part, because typically when we do reformat or just start a new account with a proper funnel, from prospecting to middle funnel, retargeting to bottom funnel, maybe even some re-engagement campaigns, which we like to do to kind of repurpose our email content for clients. So we'll run
Mm-hmm.
occasional re-engagement campaigns to newsletter subscribers in case they didn't catch the email for a new promotion or this or that, and it really helps kind of drive the sales. So we try not to look at it as, what is this campaign bringing for us, but what is the holistic, what are the holistic results across everything? Because we don't want to just silo ourselves, as we were talking earlier, that if we can get people at a low cost to sign up for our newsletter and then have them purchase through email, that's a win for us too, right? So I feel like you just have to set that up first, and there's a lot of strategies we can talk about, but I'll stick to that one.
Yeah,
Awesome.
and it's interesting to hear because we have this full funnel strategy here, with every client that we started with, and sometimes they are doing exactly what you mentioned, like going directly for the conversion campaign, or using the wrong message in the wrong level of the funnel. So it's interesting when we can share, these ideas, and when we apply, we achieve the results that we were expecting. So that this
Hmm.
is just great. And sometimes clients they don't have a brand that people know yet, right? So they are in a different moment of the funnel, and we need to start in the correct phase to present the brand and later to work with remarketing. So yeah, it's interesting, and this is I think that the best way to start, so it's
Yeah.
really good to hear.
Yeah, I typically tell clients like, oh, you don't want to use a conversion campaign because you wouldn't come to a networking event in person. It's like, hi, nice to meet you. Can I have your wallet? Like, you have to build that relationship first, right? Before you eventually
Exactly.
hand over your wallet.
That's
Exactly.
true.
It's patience. Need to sort of feed the funnel at the top and,
Yeah.
have people who, express a little bit of interest, learn about you. It's not like just the conversions bottom of the funnel. It can get so expensive, like per click. And then, who knows what the quality of those clicks are. And it's like, you look at the numbers at the end of the day, it's like, oof, that's a pretty penny.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that is good to share as well. With all the changes that we are experiencing now, I think that we can as well adapt a little our strategies for remarketing, for example, with native options like running a video view campaign, because then you can create a custom audience of people that watched that video. It's just one example, and we have other native options, to deal with the iOS 14 update. We know that is kind of a nightmare right now, because our clients are a little afraid about the impact, but we have, options to deal with. And I think it's important to highlight this too.
Hmm.
It's not the end of advertising.
Yeah, definitely not. So going off what you just said, Cliven, Aquila, are there any like formats that someone launching a new campaign or a brand new brand or anything like that? There's a million formats out there for all the different platforms. Which ones should be sort of prioritized? I mean, obviously there's A/B testing, but there's only so many formats you can put out there at once. Where should people start?
Typically, we'll just start with all ad placements to see which ones perform best, and then over time, if need be, then we'll start excluding by placement. But start with a single image, maybe a single video. If you have more products to showcase and maybe different features if you're doing a service, try carousel ads. If you have a catalog of maybe 10 or more products, test out a catalog campaign. If you don't have that many products, maybe test out Facebook shopping or Instagram checkout first to see how that performs, because you can do fewer products there. And if that performs well, then you can migrate over to do a catalog type of campaign if you're in e-commerce. But I know this kind of, there's so many things that you can do, but I trust Facebook with a grain of salt. So I'm like, okay, like I'll let you do things that your algorithm thinks is best to an extent, because I've seen it, in theory it works well, but in execution it completely fails. Of course, test it out for yourself and see, but try all placements, see how it runs. Just make sure that the specs are correct and you're showing up in most of the placements that your creative is available to show up. If it's a video, it might not work in certain ones, but just make sure that you're designing properly to take up as much of the screen as possible and get the most ad real estate so people can see what you have to offer.
Mm-hmm. And do you notice any trends in terms of like the funnel, if like video is better for brand awareness, but say carousels convert more or anything like that? Just generally, I know it's going to vary from brand to brand, but macro trends.
If you have video, try video. At any point in the funnel, it manages expectations a lot better. People understand video and digest it more quickly than reading text. So if you do something like that, try to keep your video under 15 seconds. I know it doesn't seem like a lot of time, but with, we're so overly stimulated with things on the web. But put your best foot forward in the first 3 to 5 seconds. Show your brand so people, don't hop off before seeing what you have to offer or make it confusing. Yeah, I think I read a stat that Facebook in particular allocates about 75% of their impression share towards video ads. So if you can produce some video, or if you don't have any, use a still image to use the video creation kit, or maybe some other free online tools where you can add some sort of subtle motion, because as people are scrolling, if there's something that just moves, they're more likely to stop and then see what you have to offer and read the text. Yeah.
Yeah,
Awesome.
and you have options like the slideshow, because you can include just static images, right, and create a slideshow. So this is one option. And just to share with you, because for me it was a surprise this week, we started the full funnel strategy, right? And then the one campaign that started achieving conversions because we were using a video was the video view campaign that was supposed to be, the top funnel level. So this one started achieving conversions, and for me it was a surprise. I said, okay, good, this video is so good that we will include it in the bottom of the funnel. We will use it in the conversion campaign, and then I'm just waiting now to check the results. But this is that was a surprise for me.
Awesome.
Great. Yeah, it's nice to have little surprises like that in your campaigns.
Yeah. When it happens, yeah, definitely. And I think that, like Akvile mentioned, we need to test. So it's important to run your tests so you can develop loads of strategies. And it's important to go to your reports later just to check the results.
Well, I hope that video pans out well for you. That's exciting.
Yeah, exactly. Let's see.
Oh, if you don't mind, I'm going to add one more thing for testing that I was thinking of, came back. To do upper funnel and use dynamic ads. So if you're just getting started and you're not sure what's working, it's a quick, efficient, lower cost way typically than just manually setting up your own A/B test with ads. But test out images and videos, add copy in a dynamic ad, so then you can see what Facebook pairs together very quickly, and then take those learnings and apply them maybe to other campaigns or ad sets. That's a quick way to learn.
Awesome. And you have a recent article, right, that you wrote, kind of a step-by-step on setting those up?
Yes.
Great. Yeah, I'll make sure to
you're
link
good with
that
your research.
in the notes. I try. Cool. So I was just wondering if there are any sort of trends that you're seeing in the ads. I know like AR has been like a big thing of, focusing on that. In some previous episodes, we've talked about user-generated content and how those seem to resonate really well on social media. If you want to comment on those or anything else that you may have noticed in recent months or the past sort of year or so.
Cliven, you want to go first?
No, no, you go ahead.
Okay.
I just think a little more.
The thing that comes to mind is I suspected Instagram or IGTV was going to launch ad placements, so they just did about a month ago. So I would start strategizing and thinking about ways that maybe you can start using Reels organically, because I suspect there's going to be more ad placements there in the near future. And also how to boost content from your organic post to get more reach. So, you can do that currently with feed posts. And I've noticed in one account over the last week that now you can boost carousels. So I think
Mm.
more of that will come out. It'll just be nice to have the option to promote your stories and promote reels in the near future. So maybe start strategizing around that. And I think we can expect that type of trend with Instagram, because Facebook has so many ad placement options that Instagram, with being very popular and still growing very rapidly, I know that they're looking for more impressions to sell to advertisers. So I think that that would be a probable next step for them, and just maybe start thinking ahead of what type of content might resonate on those different placements.
Great, great.
Good. And about the carousels, I don't know why Facebook stopped, letting us promote the carousels on
I know.
Instagram. That was so sad.
I
You
know.
know, these days a lot of clients, create great carousels, and I need to share with them.
Yeah,
Sorry, I can't promote this. The only option is to create a dark post. So it's complicated.
yeah.
Uh, we get a little, frustrated with this situation. But it's good to hear that maybe we will return with this option. So
Yeah, fingers crossed.
fingers crossed, definitely.
Great. Well, this has all been really amazing stuff, but unfortunately, it looks like we are running out of time here. So, I do want to close on the question that we like to end all of our shows with. So, if there's one thing that our listeners can come away with from this episode that they can implement today to help them accelerate their online business, what is that one thing, Akvile?
Let's just stick with funnels. Let's have a proper funnel set up. Make sure that your messaging resonates with who you're targeting and at what stage of the funnel, because you'll see your results maximized a lot better that way.
Mm-hmm. And do you have some kind of like method that you like, kind of like a brainstorming session or like a whiteboarding, and then you just go with that and then digitize it?
Correct. So yeah, we'll set up a strategy first and discuss who we're targeting and what the goal is, and then we'll have our copywriters compose different ad copy variations, so we have an arsenal to work with, so we don't have to go back and forth to certain clients to get review. And then we'll start testing all the different components. And just go from there. Just analyze it and see what works to turn off what's not working, and then just keep testing. Facebook's a little finicky compared to some paid search channels where, if you find something that works, it can keep running. But unfortunately, Facebook and Instagram don't work that way. So you will have to have your hands in there to continuously just check in on it, because sometimes things just turn off for no reason. So just make sure that you have everything set up properly as how you would want to see something as a potential consumer yourself, and make sure that you have tracking enabled, especially by using UTM parameters, because if you don't have those, you're going to be advertising in the dark and not be completely certain if things are working well or not.
Awesome. Great tips. Thank you so much for being on the show, Akvile, Cliven. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
These were some really great examples and tactics from both Akvile and Cliven on making winning Facebook and Instagram campaigns for e-commerce. I know I got a lot out of that, and I hope you did too. If so, please do leave us a quick review on Apple Podcasts, and make sure to subscribe to this show wherever you get your podcasts. We'll be back in a couple of weeks with Joe Martinez in the virtual studio. We'll be chatting with him about the other side of social media, TikTok, Snapchat, Reddit, Quora, and more, to see how small teams can adapt to these new, less often discussed platforms. Joe is a regular columnist on Search Engine Land, Marketing Land, and WordStream, and has been recognized by PPC Hero as one of the top 25 most influential PPC experts 3 years in a row. Make sure to tune in for this one. Stay safe, and we'll catch you back here next time on Optily Radio.